Salam and welcome back to Somali Dispatch, SomaliDispatch.com. My name is Adi Kadir Guled. Somalia's security concerns came back to the headlines as the Taliban came back to power in Afghanistan. To discuss what that means for Somalia, we reached out to Hussein Sheik Ali, a founder and the chairman of the Hiraal Institute, a Mogadishu-based security think tank. Hussein is also a former national security advisor to Somalia's federal government presidents. He joined us from Mogadishu. Salam and Hussein Sheik Ali, and welcome to Somali Dispatch. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And if you could please start us off by giving us a quick assessment of the country's current security situation.
I think the Somali situation currently is what you can describe as a stalemate. Is insurgent war that have been happening, waging in Somalia the last 10 years by a group called Al-Shabaab, who have links with Al-Qaeda, but mainly ruled and led by all Somali individuals, obviously male. And we are in election period where we will be expecting a new government in a few months' time. So situation is a stalemate, is a war that nobody is winning, which means that Al-Shabaab have achieved their goal to outlive many administrations in Somalia.
It's at times a dizzying, effort in trying to figure out who the current players or actors are that are helping Somalia with securing the country. What are their goals and what are they trying to achieve?
Obviously, there are international actors who have been supporting, propping up to help Somalia to build its institutions, constitutional institutions, be it political, security, and economic, and which you would all call it the state building project. These international actors you could categorize into three camps. One side is the Western world, where led by US, UK, European Union, and many other individual countries, including Sweden, Germany, Italy, and so on and so on. That's one camp, which mainly leads the funding or institutional building funding. The other camp is the Middle Eastern. They are more or less newcomers into Somalia, supporting the Somali government from Turkey, Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. These are the Middle Eastern countries, which have obviously have a historic links with the Somalis, and they support Somali government and some NGOs, and more or less what you could call it an informal support. And the third category of the actors is the African and the regional actors, which is our neighboring immediate neighbors, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Sudan, and beyond. And these are mainly either contributing countries to AMISOM forces, but also have a very close relationship with all Somali actors, be it Somali federal government, the Somali federal member states, as well as other Somali actors. So these are what you would call it the international camp. And they have been around for quite some time, but they are quite fragmented. They are not. There's a one office which is supposed to keep them together, all the efforts called AMISOM from the United Nations. So that these are the international actors. Obviously, Shabab have their own international actors supported by Al-Qaeda, and which have no particular address, but they get some sort of support, whether it's technical or general advice.
What are these players trying to achieve? As we know, stabilizing is very different than containing Al-Shabaab as it relates to Somalia's needs.
Good question. AMISOM came to Somalia 14 years ago, 2007. It was a new, actually, initiative by the African Union to send an African Union forces to any African theater. That was the first time AU forces were sent to any country. And its mandate has been changing. Obviously, it's also got the mandate from the United Nations Security Council. From initially the peacekeeping to peacemaking, and more or less involve state, what they call stabilizing efforts. But to be frank, I think AMISOM have made quite a success in the early years. Let's say from 2007 to 2015. I think from 2015 onwards, AMISOM have never made any tangible move expanding Somali government's territory. On one hand, Somalis were supposed to lead from there on to take further from the operations, but because of that failure, AMISOM also continued to only hold where they were from 2015. So AMISOM have on one hand succeeded its main objectives in the initial stages, but now looks like that they are really hunkering down without any success, and it's getting more fragmented, where even the unity they were showing in the initial stages, where the force commander was in charge. These days, you see individual countries behaving that they, came here for their own particular national interest, not an African Union force.
Though AMISOM is in charge of perhaps coordinating all of these efforts, much is also said about Somalia's lack of leadership in presenting the country's security needs. What went wrong?
Again, very important question. I think first of all, we have to be fair to AMISOM, where they have provided Somali government and Somali people the space to govern themselves. They have captured so many urban areas around the country, mainly South Central Somalia, starting from all the way to Beledweyne to the borders of Kenya. And the Somali government from there on were supposed to take it, the lead and actually starting transition the power from AMISOM to Somali government. And that's where I said AMISOM have achieved 2015 that goal. And from there on, I would say the maybe latter part of the Hussein Sheik Mohamud and the entire Farmajo administration, there was no effort to take further territories from Al-Shabaab, but also even show that the will to lead the war and unite the Somali forces. What I'm saying, I don't even mean only those with guns, but even the political forces, the civil society, and the entire population to lead into the war. That doesn't take place, let's say, last 6 years or so, and that's when then AMISOM became a tool, fragmented, nevertheless, a tool where Somali politicians or any other actor can use them to play their favor. So this is what they have been doing past years.
2015 sounds like coincides with the changes made to Somali government's designation from transitional to an actual fully recognized government. Do you think that in any way contributed to the failure since 2015?
I think from 15 onwards, I think I would let's give some excuse to Hussein Sheik Mohamud, where the 2016 was an election year period. But Farmajo have actually got the best chance of any government Somalia could get, where a slightly better organized military, huge support from the Somali population, as well as international actors who wanted to push a little bit further to Somalia to lead. And I think that is at the initial stages, that's when we got what we call the national security architecture, and the agreement between Somalia and the 42 countries, what we call a security pact, which was literally combining international force effort, both politically and economically, to support Somali security forces to lead the war. And I think that is when the Farmajo have dropped the ball. I think in 2017, Farmajo had the best chance to finish off what's remaining of Al-Shabaab. I don't think even any new president will get that chance. All the Somalis were behind the government, all the international community were behind the government of Somalia. I think the next administration will struggle to get that kind of a support that Farmajo have managed, or at least he was luckily
right.
And get it. So I would say the Farmajo administration was supposed to not only finish off only 10 extra further towns were only to be removed from Al-Shabaab, and that would have been the end of Al-Shabaab. And they were not able to maintain themselves or sustain themselves in the rural areas when they don't have headquarters where they could keep the what's called the command and control in the military, as well as in the governance system. So even if Shabab continued, if and when you remove from the remaining urban areas, Shabab threat and violence would have reduced to, let's say, to minimum about what we experiencing past years, about 10% to 15%, which is quite negligible. It happens all over the world if you reduce the violence up to that standard. I was very hopeful, actually, for Majo in early days that he could push it because of the popularity he came with.
You were one of President Farmajo's, security advisors, and an expert in the country's security apparatus. What do you think, or if is there anything that the Somali forces could have done more of?
I'm one of the believers, even if you go back historically, security forces, they cannot achieve anything without a proper political leadership. Nothing, zero. If and when the politics go wrong, then the security apparatus become a tool, even if they are strong operationally and functionally, they have no positive role or impactful on the grander situation. So, but in the Somalia case, it's quite different. We were trying to build security forces as well as fight an enemy who's ruthless, who knows that if they give us time, that they will be, threatened. So they would never give time to rebuild an army, a police, or any other security apparatus. So what our politicians needed to be, aware was to, give 200% to clear a path for security forces to become a professional. And to get there, first you need to have the consensus from the political actors and the wider public. And that's what, in the early days when I was as a national security advisor, I was pushing to get the consensus from federal member states, the two chambers of our parliament, as well as the general public. Without their support, you don't have a professional national army. You don't have a professional police who could, serve the constitution. And that's what we were aiming for. But I think, and I realized Farmajo had, different agendas than I was thinking of.
It sounds to me like Somali leadership on all levels, dropped the ball in focusing on their regional and individual political interests rather than putting first the country's security interest.
The back ends with Farmajo because all others would, them who could who should convince them is a win-win situation, is not a win-lose situation. Is to have the attitude and the gravitas to bring people together, to convince them this is is a must. Shabab is the only threat that we all have. Having a professional army and police will be a benefit for everybody. This is what we need to convince the people, because we don't want people to think an army is a threat. Yes, army is a threat when they are not professional. Police is a threat when they are not professional. Obviously, intelligence service is a grave threat when they are not professional, which now we are experiencing. So this is what we need to convince the political elite as well as the general public. And that's when that's the exact reason we lost our state in 1991, because we were divided, and our army and our police service and our security apparatus were serving an individual instead of serving everybody. So this is what we need to convince people. We need to have a strong security apparatus, but that strength should not be threatening to anybody, because these forces are going to serve the constitution and the people.
The current president's oppositions repeatedly accuse him of perhaps his admiration for the ways of the old Ziad Barre regime. Could that have contributed to the lack of focus here?
I don't know. There's a lot of people who were much closer to even Ziad Barre regime than him, who have, reformed, who believe constitutional democracy, who doesn't believe autocratic rule. So I don't know if that's the case. But even a lot of people who never worked with that regime, or even not related to that regime, in Somalia, a lot of them actually, think, authoritarianism is the only way that you could rule Somalia. It's a big actually argument in Somalia, in Hamar, when people would say, no, this democracy will not take us nowhere. We need to have a strong man. So strongman, support is not related to only Ziad Barre. I think maybe Ziad Barre is giving them some, nostalgia or some, memories to go back to it. But I think fascism is rampant around the world now.
With the country's diverted attention currently, as you know, where there are elections going on, what could that do to Somalia's current security situation?
And this current situation, it's a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky where the legitimacy of the current government is diminishing by the day because of the expiration of the term, as well as the low confidence of the government, and as well as the international actors who were supporting Somalia does not know which actor to deal with. So every time they have to check around, is President Farmajo is the right person to meet? No, maybe it's controversial. Okay, Roble is the man that is leading this, but can he do that? And who else? So I think in this dilemma, it's not helping. It's not helping Somalia. Obviously, it's helping Shabab, who might take advantage. And you could only yesterday they managed to attack 3 different military positions. That shows how effective they are to target within 24 hours 3 different positions. So I think next few months is going to be very, very tricky and dangerous period. So the sooner we elect a president and get a new administration, the better for Somalia. We can't maintain the situation of uncertainty any longer.
Thank you for your responses, Hussein. Let's talk about news developments around the world, specifically in Afghanistan. What does it mean for Somalia, what's happening in Kabul? And what does it also mean for Somalia's security partners? What are the implications?
It's an opportunity for Somalia, both for Somalis as well as those who were trying to support Somalia to get to its feet. Why I'm saying it's opportunity because Somalia is the closest example or closest country that you could take Afghanistan as a lesson learned, where we share quite a lot in terms of the background and the actors, the proxies, the terror groups, and so on and so on. Obviously, there's quite also differences. So I think on one hand, the Somalis have waken up. They realize that there might be an eventuality where the international actors might throw them under the bus and say, deal with it with Al-Shabaab. But also the internationals might have also a wake-up call and say, okay, Somalia needs a support, and the support, the mistakes that they learned from Afghanistan, not to be repeated in Somalia, and but more of an advantageous for Somalia than actually, because now all Somalis are talking about it, and right. It's a bit of a reminder what can happen, what can take place. But also the other side, also that conversation is happening. So it's a welcome incident, although it's quite unfortunate for the ordinary Afghanis who have been trying to build a stable country for a very long time.
Can you please give us your assessment on AMISOM's perceived transfer of security to Somali forces? How do you foresee that going?
Actually, that it's called transferring power to Somali forces. It's not happening because there's nowhere to transfer to power. Somali forces are not are incapable of taking over. Just give you one good example. In the entire territories that AMISOM have liberated last 10 years or so, there is no single town that Somalis can keep if AMISOM leaves today. One single town or even a camp, including the capital. The capital, obviously, then they are invisible. You can see them at the airport and the port and the presidential palace. But without AMISOM, nobody, you could see Kabul 2.0 within a few hours.
Why is it then that the federal government of Somalia is pushing back on opposing on the AU's proposal of extending AMISOM's mandate?
Well, I think it's just a face-saving exercise on one hand, but on the other hand, I also don't support AU to come up with any plan while the current administration is in their way out. I think AMISOM and the African Union should wait the new president to deal with the future, how AMISOM and the Somali forces are going to agree on the way forward. So I think it's misplaced in terms of the time, but for the government, it's always, they want to keep a good face, and that's what his job is now.
Hussein Sheik Ali, Thank you so much for joining us and explaining Somalia's current and perhaps future security situation to our audience. We can't thank you enough. Have a good night.
Thank you, Abdulkadir.